I am blessed to be here. I am blessed to be married to a woman that knows a lot about preaching. Her grandfather and her father were gospel preachers. Her mother was married to Laura's dad until 1996 when Brother Paul Kidwell Sr. passed away. And about 4 years later, Mom married another preacher. So it's in our family, it's in her family especially, and anytime she and I both are speaking at the same place where she'll do a ladies' day and then they have me speak to the men or start a gospel meeting or whatever, I always tell the men that the ladies know something that they can't know. And that's that my wife's a better preacher than I am. And I mean that. She knows how to present things in a way that's very effective. I appreciate her. I appreciate you for saying what you did, Brother Jack. I know that that's almost a joke, but I appreciate that. Thank you. And I know you mean it, though, but I appreciate that so much. Tonight we're going to talk about something that I'm not sure that it's a serious problem in the church. And the reason I say that is this: if there's anything that Christian women ought to be standing against, it's feminism. And I have known of women who have stood against that for years, because feminism is defined as the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. Well, that last part we can talk about, but the first part is the real problem. When you talk about something, define something as the advocacy of a particular viewpoint, what you mean is that particular viewpoint is going to maintain aggressive stance and posture and action until they get to take over. That's kind of what feminism is. We're feminists, we're here, and we're in your face. And we're not going to rest until we take over. That's the message I get, and I don't get that from Christian women, serious Christian women. Those who are faithful New Testament Christian women, they don't talk that way. They don't act that way. I find Christian women standing against things that feminism has stood for, like abortion on demand. That's what feminism has brought us. That's what the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes contends. That's her right to choose whether or not to have a live baby or a dead baby. That's what abortion is, choosing to have a dead baby rather than a live one. And the woman's rights movement, the feminist movement, has been there. Let me put out some disclaimers before we get into that, though. Just because a woman takes up the slack in leadership in her family, the leadership that her husband is refusing, she takes up that slack in her home, does not make her a feminist. It makes her a caring mother, a caring woman about her family. The husband ought to be doing it, the father ought to be doing it, but sometimes they don't. Well, you don't want your children to just go without leadership. Sometimes the woman becomes leader by default. That doesn't make her a feminist. Just because a woman believes she deserves to be treated fairly and with respect for the work that she does not make her a feminist. And I'll even go one more. Just because a woman is good at sports, she maybe is a good huntress, a good shot. My wife's a better shot than I am. Okay. Just because she likes some things that guys will think, well, that's manly stuff, just because a woman is good at that does not make her a feminist. And just because she does not like to clean house does not make her a feminist. Has Rob told you about the guy that showed up Sunday morning with a black eye? he's kind of trying to keep it quiet, but the guys started noticing. They said, man, what happened to you? I was just sitting there watching TV, and my wife comes in, and she said, what's on television? And I said, dust. Dust. Okay. Well, she could have just handed him a rag, and said, get at it. But anyway, just because a woman does some things that might not fit some stereotypical category does not make that woman a feminist. Feminist is a woman who's going to protest, she's going to advocate, she's going to say vulgar things. I was so disappointed in Ashley Judd back during the election, weren't you? For all the vulgar things that she said. She's a feminist, and that's why she said that. That's what advocates, and I'm sorry, I know you're getting tired of that too. I'll try to get it out of my puff zone here. Just because, you want to be treated fairly doesn't mean you have to go to the other extreme and protest and say bad things and vulgar things and ugly things that really are not helpful. And actually, what we're going to look at tonight helps us understand, I think, why women should not be feminists. It doesn't help a woman to be a feminist. They think that it does. They think that equality of the sexes thing is really where it's at. By the way, Duke University, y'all have heard this in the news, they're trying to get some men to volunteer for this program, this class, so that men can learn about toxic masculinity and how bad it is for you to be a manly man. And they go to extreme with that. I'm going to talk about where that is a problem later on, but right now, to talk about toxic masculinity is to suggest that there ought not be a difference between the male, and I'm going to say gender, and the female gender. There's just two. Okay? There's no in-between choices and ranges of thought, of which one you want to be. You're either born this way or born that way, and with some very, rare exceptions to that rule. That's the way it is. And if you are a man, you are not bad because you're a man. You are not born privileged, but that's what feminists would have you to believe. And because you are a man, you're privileged, and women are downtrodden and mistreated, and they're a subclass. That's the way feminists present it. That's not the way your Bible presents it. Turn your Bible to Genesis chapter 1, please. God said, let us make man in our image and after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, verse 26 says, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. Now, did he say just the males, or did he mean mankind? Well, let us make man in our image. How did God make man? Well, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Here it is. Male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. That's not just men. That's the male and the female. That's a man who has someone that is helping him to do that job. He's not doing it alone. She's not doing it alone. They're doing it together. This instruction is for both. Multiply takes both. Subduing the earth takes both to do it as well as it can be done. Verse 28, verse 29 rather, God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed which is upon the face of the earth, every tree in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. To every beast of the earth, to every fowl of the air, to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat. It was so. And God saw that everything that he had made, and behold, or saw everything that he had made, and it was very good. You go back, start in verse 10, then verse 12, and verse 18, and I think 21 and 25. Now, everyone from day 3 on down, God saw what He had made, and He said, literally in the Hebrew, that good. He saw it, He said, did a good job. I made it just right. But when He gets to the final day, when He has not only made man, but He has made the male and the female, then He said, that is very good. I'm going to suggest to you that because she was the last one made, that the woman is the crown of creation. And that in the biblical view, feminism cheapens a woman's place in society. Feminism takes that away. Feminism is trying to exalt the place of a woman, and it does just the opposite of that. It diminishes her place. When you get to sin in the garden in chapter 3, remember what happened? After God had brought those sacrifices for Adam and Eve, and then brought them the animal skins that resulted from that, so that they did not that day surely die. God forgave through sacrifice, evidently, their sin. When Adam saw that he had been spared and that she had been spared, in verse 20 of Genesis chapter 3, Adam called his wife's name Eve, literally in the Hebrew, Hawa, because she was the mother of all living. If it were not for the woman, there would be no human life on earth today. If it were not for the woman, life would not continue. That name that He gave her means a living one. And she is the crown of creation, because it's through her now that life is going to continue in this world. God highly exalted somebody. He highly exalted Jesus, we know that. Philippians chapter 2 gave Him a name that's above every name. And God never intended for Mary to be worshiped, but He did intend for her to be respected, to be received wherever she was with honor. Not to be worshiped. But when she walked into Elizabeth's house, remember in Luke chapter 1 and verse 41, it came to pass when Elizabeth heard the salutation of Mary, the babe leaped in her womb, and Elizabeth was filled with the Holy Ghost, and she spake with a loud voice and said, Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb. And whence is this to me, that the mother of my Lord should come to me? For lo, as soon as the voice of thy salutation sounded in mine ears, the babe leaped in my womb for joy. And blessed is she that believed, for there shall be a performance of those things which were told her from the Lord. She believed. Blessed, happy is she that believed. She is the mother of the Lord in this context. There's something special about that. There's a special honor that the Lord bestowed upon a woman. When Jesus came into this world, Galatians 4 verse 4, He came in the fullness of time. He was born under the law, but He was made a woman. That takes you back to Genesis 3 again, back to verse 15, where the seed promise is first given. But notice how the woman figures into God's plan, how Mary figures into God's plan. Mary was highly exalted by God because of the role that God chose for her, and she accepted it. She said, let it be according to your will. You use me as your handmaid as you need. I'll do whatever's needed to accomplish your plan. In other words, she would be saying, she was highly regarded. Again, no, we don't worship her. We don't need statues of her. They have no power. There's some folks who think they do. Or if you see a shadow image displayed upon a wall or on a tree somewhere that looks like her, why that must be a worshipful place. No, there's no such thing. We don't have the icons and the statues in the Lord's church. We don't worship those things. We don't worship people. We worship God. But we do honor her, do we not? We do thank God for her. I thank God for all godly women. What we call chauvinism in this part of the world, the Southeast, the South really, it's just a way of showing proper respect, putting a woman on a proper pedestal. And there are some things in my thinking, and I'll take it on me as the preacher here tonight, but there are some things that I think in this world that might not be characteristic of feminism. Feminism might not like it too, but I'm persuaded that we have allowed the world to shape our thinking in a very wrong way that also cheapens women. Things like beauty pageants, where you've got to see just about all of this girl's body before you can say that she's worthy to have some honor. A beauty pageant where the woman has to expose most of her body for all the men to see. Does that really sound like exalting a woman? Does that sound like reverence or respect and honor for that woman? It sounds like you're cheapening that woman to me, or those women. And while I'm at it, I ran across, I think Laura put me on to it, of all places in the world, it's in La Vista, California. There's a church out there that found this article where a man had gone to a series of football games, and all he did was videotape cheerleaders in their cheerleading uniforms. The problem's not being a cheerleader. The problem is the lack of clothing that's characteristic of that activity. And he proved it. All he did was zoom in. One particular girl was the focal point of this film that this dirty old man made of just cheerleaders at high school football games. And they took him to court because, why, he put that thing out for everybody to see, and it's just vulgar. The problem was, it was just the girl in her cheerleading outfit, and it was called that suddenly uncomfortable cheerleading outfit. Whoever designed those things was not a godly man. Whoever designed those things was not a godly woman, and whoever designed those things was not trying to exalt women. They cheapen women by that. You can get mad at me and fuss at me because you can't fire me. You might say don't ever have him back again, but think about it. Is that really the way that we need, the activity that we need to encourage our daughters and granddaughters to be a part of? To show off themselves in that way. Because the boys are looking at it the same way the dirty old man was looking at it for the most part. It's not necessary. The cheerleading outfits that folks wore 50 years ago weren't like that. They didn't expose the young woman in that way. For the most part, it's not necessary. Bathing suits don't have to expose bodies. Do you know that? Well, I can prove it. Backwoods Christian Camp, we go swimming together. Guys and girls go swimming together in Lakewood, Dowling, down at Backwoods Christian Camp in Lineville, Alabama. And everybody is modestly clothed. It's not the activity, it's the clothing that is the problem. Immodesty cheapens a young woman. If you think, young lady, Christian sister, that you have to dress in skimpy fashion to attract attention, you're interested in the wrong kind of attention. You've got your focus off base. Well, I've preached a lot on that. I'm going to go on. But now, a Christian woman, she deserves, every woman deserves to be treated with respect. She deserves to be treated with appreciation. Now, here's where true toxic masculinity comes in. When a young man does not respect you, when a young man is interested in satisfying himself, that's the kind of masculinity that's toxic. That'll send a young man's soul to torment. Don't encourage that. Don't let that take place. Young men, show respect. Open the door. You're going out on a date? Go to the door. Don't sit out there in the driveway and honk the horn. My daughter never went out to a car where a young man was waiting honking the horn. It just didn't happen. I had a baseball bat by the door just in case he didn't get the message, you know. But show respect. Show that young woman that you appreciate her, that you honor her. Stand up. This doesn't happen very often anymore. Stand up when a woman enters the room. Okay? Now, there's some variations of that, but when you're in a situation where it's very obvious that this is a confined space, there's some people maybe sitting around talking at a dinner table or whatever, and a woman comes into the room, guys, stand up. Just show some respect. Show some honor. It doesn't hurt, and it'll certainly make the woman feel like she's somebody to be appreciated. Number two. Number one was feminism cheapens a woman's place in society. It takes away the respect and honor that men would like to bestow upon women for the most part. But secondly, feminism destroys the protections that a woman needs. Let's get back to our Bibles. 1 Peter chapter 3. 1 Peter chapter 3. The first 6 verses are about the woman's place as a wife. Women, y'all can read that. It's about you. It's to you. Okay? It's not for a man to use against you. It's about the attitude that a Christian woman ought to have toward her husband, whether he's a Christian or not. And especially if he's not a Christian, really. Verse 7, husbands, I'm one, so I can talk to you. And here Peter's talking to all of us. Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel, and as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers be not hindered. I want to focus in just a moment on that statement, the weaker vessel. Now, that's not a judgment of women. That's a fact of life, okay? That's a reality that most women in average, everyday life are going to be a little bit weaker than the man. That's characteristic of our species. That's the way we are. But let's review just a minute. Giving honor unto her. Giving, literally in the original, means to show. You demonstrate it. To portion off, to assign, to bestow. Men, do you honor your wives or your girlfriends, whatever the situation might be, on purpose? Do you do it overtly so that she will see it and know it? So that she'll get that message, and maybe some other folks around will get the message that you really respect her, that you really honor her, that you care about her. Giving honor. Show it. It needs to be seen. You better. Just a word of warning. If you haven't already learned this lesson, you better remember those days, okay? Birthdays, anniversaries, 2 most important days for a married man. His wife's birthday and their anniversary. Just better keep that in mind. Now, giving honor. We're reviewing point 1 again, okay? You show that respect, you show that, but honor. To estimate worth, in respect of worth. How much is a stay-at-home wife, and especially a stay-at-home wife and mother, how much is she worth? You can't really assess an accurate dollar amount to that, but when you put into the mix all that she does, chauffeur for the children sometimes, nurse in the home, cook, butler, housekeeping. Here's the estimate that I got. $143,102 a year. That's the value. Now, yeah. No. When you add up all she does, that's right. And so is it worth it, really, to make her go to work? If she is certainly a mother, wouldn't it be better to have that woman giving the attention to the children, giving attention in the family? I'll get to that more in just a moment. She needs that man now who honors her, who really cares about her. If he really does care about her, he's going to give honor to her as the weaker vessel. I was really happy to find out that my baby daughter is married to a young man that is very protective of her. She is with child. He will not allow her to drive more than just 30 minutes from home. He's going to be with her if they're going to make the trip longer than that, generally speaking. I'm really happy to hear that. He cares about her. He's protective of her. That's the way it needs to be, giving honor to her as the weaker vessel. You are the first line of defense between you, guys, between you and any threat, or between rather your wife and any threat that's coming toward her. You are the first line of defense. If you are with a young woman, young men, you are the first line of defense to protect that woman from harm, to defend her honor, we would say. But you protect her because she is the weaker vessel. Now, I know, there may be some exceptions where a woman might be stronger than a man. My younger sister had the reputation when she was in the 10th grade of being able to beat any guy on the football team at arm wrestling. That's not typical. She was perhaps the exception to the rule there. But don't let your wife become vulnerable. Don't put her in a position of vulnerability, either at home, at work, or whatever. Don't let her be vulnerable in that way. And here's another thought. A thought that's not found in Matthew 19:9 is found in Matthew 5, verse 32, where Jesus says that it's not right to put away your wife for any cause. There should never be a divorce to take place unless there is a violation of that marriage contract. You should not put away that wife, except it be for fornication. Whosoever put away his wife, Jesus said in Matthew 5:32, causeth her to commit adultery. How do you do that? Here's how. You put this weaker vessel in a vulnerable position. When you put away your wife without cause, you're putting that woman in a very vulnerable position. She needs to be protected. She knows she needs to be protected in some way. She knows that she needs a man to stand up for her. And she's going to have to look for somebody else now. She doesn't have God's right to do that. But you put her in a position of vulnerability when you have put her away without cause. I believe that's what that passage is saying. One of the things that Jesus is saying in that passage causeth her to commit adultery. She's a vulnerable woman. She needs somebody to help take care of her. She's going to be doing what she can, but she knows that she was made to be a help suitable for a man. And you have injured that process. Finally, number 3. Number 1 was feminism cheapens a woman's place in society. Feminism, number 2, removes protections that a woman needs. If a woman does not have a right view of a relationship with man, does not have a right God-designed relationship with man, she's not in that marriage that God created to be good for both, Hebrews 13, verse 4, she's going to be vulnerable in many ways. Number 3, feminism produces confusion. This world needs nurturers, especially children. They need nurturers. Men can't do that very well. They can do it a little. There are a lot of single dads that are having to do that, having to fill in the blank spots because the mom has bought into this feminist idea or mentality where she thinks the world owes her everything, and she leaves her family. That's bad and that's difficult. But it's just not in the nature of man to be that nurturer. He needs some help. I know a gospel preacher that tried to raise 2 boys. He realized his limitations. He got his sister to help out in some of those regards from time to time because he needed a woman's touch in their lives. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. I want you to turn there with me. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2. The Apostle Paul is talking about how he worked with the church at Philippi. This is probably one of the first letters that Paul wrote, not long after he had been there. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, in verse 7, he says, "But we were gentle among you, even as a nurse cherisheth her children." We're not talking about a nurse in a hospital in the baby ward, in labor and delivery. If you've got a New King James Version, I believe it says nursing mother. A nursing mother. How much care does a nursing mother have for that little baby? She notices every breath it takes. She notices everything about that child repeatedly. She cares for that child as if it were pure gold. She cherishes that little baby. Now, daddies do too. But mamas are the nurturers. God gave women that knack, that instinct. He gave them that role. Men can help out. The daddies can help out, can encourage it. But daddies have a different role in the home, more leadership responsibility, less of the nurturing. He's providing, he's protecting, but she's nurturing. It's good for that woman to decide to be with that child in the home, to raise that child. Several years ago, there was an article that came out called Latchkey Kids. And from that article came that expression. What a latchkey kid is a kid that comes home from school and nobody's there. They've got the key to the door, they let themselves in, and they amuse themselves till mama or daddy get home from work. Latchkey kids. Sometimes it has to be, I understand. Sometimes that's doing the best you can with what you have where you are. But the ideal is to have that mama there. Again, I know, not a popular idea, but isn't it realistic? Isn't it the truth about God's design in the home? And I'm not saying just because a woman works, she's a feminist. I don't mean that at all. Because a mother has to work, she's a feminist. No, I've got a daughter that's going to face that decision. She's doing quite well in her business. She's about to have, this is another daughter that's going to have a young one about 2 weeks after the baby has her first child. She's doing very well in her business. But she's going to have to make a decision. Who's going to keep this child now that it's come along into this family? Mamas have the knack. Mamas have the nursing ability as far not just physically, but also naturally. It's in her nature. What feminism has called stereotyping in many cases was good for us. Having that mother there to rear that child, to nurture that child, was good for us. Feminism tried to destroy that, still is trying to destroy that. Maybe they've toned it down a little because they too realize it's really not working out as well as we thought it was. And by the way, who's stereotyping now? Feminists were against the stereotypical role of women in the home. They oppose that. And so now, if you like to be a homemaker, if you like to be a stay-at-home mom, why, you're not all you could be. Who's stereotyping now? Right? They've got their standard and they say, you can't be the old standard. Well, okay. You're trying to implement your standard, and that's exactly what they're doing, trying to tell us that God's way is not the best way. I'm trying to tell you, God knew what He was doing from the beginning. When He saw that it was not good for man to be alone, He wanted man to see that it's not good for man to be alone. He wanted the woman to see that it was not good for her to be alone either. She was made to be the help suitable for Adam. Turn back to Genesis 2 with me, and we'll draw this segment to a close. I haven't heard a bell. Has there been one? There has been one? Okay, well, I better hurry then. Genesis chapter 2, verse 23. After God woke Adam up from surgery, okay, however He did that, miraculously, I know. Adam said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh." Didn't take a bone out of his head. Didn't take a bone out of his foot. Took a rib from his side, and Adam got the message. That's where he wanted Eve to be from then on, by his side. I appreciate you listening to me. Well, I guess I should offer anybody an opportunity to ask a question. I haven't done that here tonight. Do you have any question about anything that I've said? I hope I presented biblically God's idea about the woman in the home and how feminism counteracts that, and that's never a good thing. When you have advocates against what the Bible teaches, it will not help the home. It will hurt the home. Be an example to the folks around you that maybe are watching television and getting their ideas from other sources. Just be an example of what a happy Christian wife and mother is all about. What a happy Christian woman, if you can't be a wife or a mother, what a happy Christian woman is all about, finding your fulfillment in serving God. Thank you.